Welcome to the Lifestyle Property Podcast. I'm Jamie Greaves, your host and professional property investor. I'm here to bring you insights, home truths, and powerful stories about what really goes on in property investment, business, and growing your dream lifestyle. Are you ready? Let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to Lifestyle Property, and welcome to episode 28, which is titled The Truth About Passive Income. And today's going to be a powerful one, guys. So lock in, get your notepads ready, and let's go. So let's get into it. How does early retirement sound on the back of last week's podcast? Well, it sounds brilliant, right? Having the freedom every day to do what you want, where you want, with who you want. But we don't want to wait 50 years for this. It's scary, the age of retirement these days. We don't want to wait. We want to bring this forward. And for all of us, freedom is the goal. You know, financial freedom's talked about a lot in property investment circles, but there's also location freedom and, importantly, time freedom. Okay, not to change our time for money for life. And as mentioned on the last podcast, you know, investment is the best way to grow our wealth and retire early, undoubtedly, objectively. Now, over the past 6 years, I've moved through the levels. There's different gears we go through in investment and different levels, as previously shared. And I started with cash flow. So to get myself time freedom to go full time in property, I started with cash flow. I've then moved into more capital growth and capital assets, and now charity. And along the way, I've learned a lot of home truths, real life stories about passive income and financial freedom. And I'm going to share those honest insights with you today because it's going to be really, really, really valuable for you. Now, just to recap, as we all know, so jobs, traditional jobs, when we work once and we get paid once. Okay, so we're trading our time and effort for money. Whereas assets is when we work once and we get paid forever. And really the aim of the game is to secure life-changing assets that will pay us for life. And I want you to remember that point. Okay, so job is when we're trading our time for money, but assets will pay us for life. Okay, now up front, we need to make money. Okay, so up front, we unashamedly need to focus on trading our time for money. And this requires hard work. It requires focus, and then requires collaboration. But as much as possible, if we want to retire early and get to that freedom goal early, we want to invest into assets and assets that will pay us the income forever. But there's absolutely no shame in trading our time for money. Okay, most of the world does this, and it's an absolute privilege to even get the choice to invest and have the option to invest. Okay, so don't feel shameful if you're still trading your time for money. I started there. We all start there. The key thing to do when we are doing this is to make our time more valuable. Okay, so make your time more valuable. So if we're working hard to earn money, this is the key. Okay, so some ideas for you: bring more value, help more people, solve bigger problems. Whether this is in your work, so if you're still in employment and you're growing your assets on the side, or whether you're in business or you're a full-time investor like me. Bring value, help people, solve problems, and society will reward you. We live in a capitalist society. This is the key if we're trading our time for money. But then how about securing assets? Well, how passive are these assets? How much time freedom is out there? Well, I'm going to give you real life examples as we go through the gears of investing. Okay, as I built through my portfolio, so you fully understand just how passive it is and get some tips and tricks through that as well. So stage one, level one is cash flow as we're going through the gears. Cash flow, portfolio, cash flow, business. So some examples here are rent to rent. So rent to SA and holiday lets, or rent to HMO. Alternative example here would be management. So management of properties. So you're a letting agent or growing a management business across SA, HMO, buy to let. This is where I started. So I started in rent to SA. I wanted to buy assets, but I knew that rent to rent would allow me to get there quicker. Now, the core question is rent-to-rent passive? Nope, it's not. Rent-to-rent is not passive, but it can allow you to quit your job. Okay, so if you want to quit your job and go into property full time, something like rent to rent or growing a management business will allow you to do that. And that is the aim of the game now. It's a cash flow business, but it will require your time. It's a quicker cash flow strategy. Okay, so this suits those who want to go full time. Now, so it's not passive. So this is a nil on the passive. There's work involved, but it does get you into property full time, and it will give you great experience. And certainly what it did for me is it eased my move into buying assets, because you get experience and you get credibility and you build your confidence and your clarity. So then you know exactly what to buy and where to buy, and you've already got units in those areas, so you know the numbers, which is really, really important. So it's a no on the passive front, a cash flow strategy, but it's a big tick if you're looking to go full time into something like property investment, which can help you scale. So just be conscious that it will require work, but it'll allow you to go in full time. Okay, so that's where a lot of us will start. So cash flow portfolio, cash flow business. Then where do we go after them? Well, number 2, and something which is very, very smart, okay, is buying high cash flow deals. Okay, so this would be buy to SA or buy to holiday lets or buy to HMO. And I think this is an underrated, hugely valuable area. Okay, because to answer the aim of the game of this podcast, can they be passive? Yes, they can be. Okay, these assets can be just as passive as any other asset type, as buy to let, as commercial, which I'll cover shortly, if you get someone else to manage. Okay, so there are specialist management companies out there for your strategy, for your area. So there'll be a specialist SA management company or HMO management company for your area. Okay, and they'll look after the property and the guests or tenants. Thus, your income will be passive, just as passive as buy-to-lets and commercial, which I'll cover later on. Okay, so they manage the property, you manage the manager. Okay, so I can go into a lot of depth on this, but we need to know our stuff. We need to know our bacon. So you need to be knowledgeable on your sector, so you know who should manage your properties, because the success of your assets there will come down to your management. Okay, how good are they at their business, at their job? Okay, really, really important. Don't skimp here. Pay top people top money. And this is probably the most important thing for your assets. So who manages your assets and how they manage them is very important. Okay, that will make a big difference on the success of your portfolio. Okay, so if you want to buy high cash flowing assets like SA, HMOs, holiday lets, really smart thing to do early on, because you get a lot more income than a slower asset, so it can really speed up your time and financial freedom. Very smart thing to do. If you outsource the management, this can be very, very, very passive. Okay, but what about self-management? Well, that's not as passive, naturally. Okay, but it is much less work than a full-time job. Okay, so self-management of a high cash flow asset is much less work than a full-time job. Could be a few hours per week, a couple of hours per day, worst case. Okay, and then here, professionalism is the aim of the game. So correct systems, best staff, really, really important. So you can outsource, delegate, systemize, do things professionally. Now, you'll earn more money if you self-manage, actually, because you're not paying a manager's commission, but it'll take you some time. So it's a trade-off, really. So if you want passive, you can absolutely buy SAs, buy HMOs, outsource them to a specialist manager, and then it makes it very, very passive. Well, when I say very passive, just as passive as a pension pot, as stock shares, buy-to-lets, commercial assets, which I'll cover shortly. Okay. Now, in terms of self-management, if you love the aspect of it, then it doesn't feel like work. Okay, so I personally don't love management. I don't think I have the patience for it. So I've outsourced my management. Okay, makes it very, very passive. And I keep an eye on my assets like I would do any other asset investment portfolio. But I've got other business partners and friends and JV partners who love the management aspect. They love it. They kind of guess, but particularly as you go when you get the kind of nicer properties, are a lot easier to manage because a nicer property attracts a better guest or tenant type. Okay, so number two, high cash flow. When you're buying, you've got the margin there to outsource the management should you choose to, which can make it very, very passive. Okay, so rent to rent not so much, but buying certainly can be. And as we move through the gears of property investment, it gets more and more passive as we go. So we have to put more time, energy, focus, heart into it early on, and then things get easier and more passive as we go, which is good news. So everything gets easier over time. Everything gets easier. How about, so a third area is trading activity. So how about things like deal sourcing or flips? So this is not passive. Okay, so it's not passive. It's not passive income. So sourcing deals for investors, doing flips and developments is not passive. Okay, but that's not to say that we shouldn't do it. Just say that it's not passive. So long as you've got a clear goal and a clear plan and you're working towards that, then there can be nothing wrong with exchanging your time and experience and knowledge for money as you would do here. The key thing, as mentioned earlier, is to bring more value, help more people, solve bigger problems. And I've certainly found if you're very ethical in what you do, you can grow a highly scalable, very smart lifestyle business in these trading areas. Okay, so just help more people. So for example, I do deal sourcing still. I'll make sure that my deals are very, very, very good. Brilliant deals. And therefore, it's a very smooth business to be part of. Bring value. Flips, for example, buy unloved properties that no one else wants to really live in, refurbish them to a beautiful standard, and you bring in loads of value to society that way. But just don't do flips too early on, because that's how you lose money. Do not jump into flips or developments early on. You'll lose money. I think I've covered that in previous podcasts, but in case you've not listened to those, yeah, really risky. Go back and listen to previous podcasts if you need to. Then the critical thing there is two things, really. If you're doing trading activity, okay, is one, be valuable, be a person of your word. I've solved problems, help people. But then secondly, do this, to put money into assets. Okay, because it's ultimately when we can move through the gears, maybe we move on from rent to rent into buying, it's assets which change our lives. It's assets which can be our legacies for our family. It's assets which give us early retirement, give us passive income, give us freedom. So don't be a busy fool doing all this activity and then spending it on holidays. I love a holiday. I go every couple of months. Beautiful. But put your money into assets. Okay. And then how about the fourth area? Okay, which is slower assets. Okay, so things like, when I say slow assets, I just mean they're not as noisy, they're a bit calmer. Things like buy-to-lets and commercial, but also away from property. Things like stocks and shares in your pension. So they should be the kind of quietest assets to look after. Well, actually, they're very, very similar to buy to SA or buy to HMO when someone else is managing your assets there. This pulls this entire category of when you own assets. Okay? And ultimately, in this area, I'd say it takes a few hours a week. Okay? It takes a few hours a week. Now, this is the same if you've got a buy to SA and someone else is managing it, or you've got stocks and shares, or a pension, or buy to let. And you might think, Jamie, why on earth would it take a few hours a week if you've got a pension or stocks and shares? It's because we want to spend this time on it, okay? Because we're born to bring value. You know, we don't want to just sit idly by and do nothing. And this is our legacy, guys. This is our family's legacy. This is our retirement pot. So a few hours a week is absolutely nothing, okay? And it's because we want to keep an eye on our portfolio. No, whatever that is. SA, HMO, buy-to-let, pension. Okay, if you own these assets, I just want to keep an eye on it because it's your retirement asset. Now, you can absolutely do this in a calm, enjoyable, manner. You could be sipping a coffee on a quiet, calm morning. You could be having a cold drink on a warm holiday, and you're checking your investment portfolio. I don't consider that work. Okay, I don't consider that work. I don't think anyone would consider that true work. That's an absolute privilege. So is it completely passive? No assets are completely passive. Okay, but because you want to keep an eye on it. You want to, if you're in the stock market, for example, you'll be doing research. If it's your property portfolio, you'll be just checking up on things to make sure that your manager's managing it effectively, make sure everything's paid. But it's an absolute beautiful, privileged position to get into. Okay? And it's scalable. This is the other thing. It's the amazing thing about when you get to own assets is it's scalable. There's no limit on your asset ownership. Therefore, there's no limit on your retirement income. Okay? It gets easier and easier as you get with experience. I've had to stop buying because I didn't want to be greedy. We could just keep buy. And now we're very, very picky, and we've moved through the gears towards charity, towards a bigger mission that I'm working for. But it would be easy just to rinse, repeat, keep buying, and that's why we see some landlords end up with 200, 300, 400 properties. I don't wish to be there because it takes a little bit of crazy greed to go there, but you could do if you wanted to. There's no limit to this scalable asset ownership, and it just grows your retirement income. It gets more tax efficient as you go through the gears as well. So it does take time and knowledge and money. So if we go all the way back to one of my first podcasts, what we need to grow assets is a combination of time, knowledge, and money. So a combination would be required to get this. But then when you own assets, I'd call them mostly passive. Okay, so it's not as sexy as completely passive or complete. They're mostly passive. You're not exchanging your time for money anymore. Okay, they'll pay you an income, and they'll pay you an income for life. You can pass them on to your family. Okay, they're scalable. There's no limit to them. So mostly passive assets they're the aim of the game. They're absolutely brilliant, and they're not fully passive, but it's because we don't want them to be fully passive. Because if you completely just, for example, went off grid and didn't check anything in your portfolio for years upon years, you're just not looking after it. You're not just harmonizing. You're not maximizing your rate of return. So it's not tiresome. It's not hard. Once you've got the right knowledge and you've scaled the right way and the best way, and you've eliminated risk, then I'd call them mostly passive. Okay, so there you have it. I'm not sat here saying I've got 50 years experience of asset ownership. I'm saying I've got 6 years experience, and I've gone through all of these levels. So level 1, cash flow, is not passive, but it will get you into your asset class full time. So something like rent to rent, not passive, but you're in property full time. Brilliant. Then use that to buy assets. Okay, and then if you outsource the management, it's mostly passive, just like buy-to-let. But if you do self-management, that'll take some time, but you'll earn more money. Go through the gears. If you then move on to things like sourcing or flips, make sure that you bring in value, you're helping people, and then put that money you earn into assets. Assets which can be your future retirement and your current retirement, scalable, family legacy assets. And that is the end goal. That is a goal for you, for all of us. They'll pay you for life, and this is where we get time, location, financial freedom. It's when we own the assets. Okay, and then you can choose how to spend your life. And how amazing is that? You can choose if you want to retire early or if you want to keep growing. Do you want to move into charity work? Do you want to travel? Okay, you can choose what point you stop exchanging your time for money. Okay, and then live on your asset income sustainably. Maybe you want to continue to some work, no problem, but maybe you want to cut down your hours and cut down your days, or just work for yourself, or sack your boss, or change company, or go and work in that sector you've always loved to work in, or do more charity work. You name it. It's freedom and it's choice. And really, I think this kind of message is very, very, very important. I'm a very positive guy, but if I step outside of my positive asset bubble for a second and just look at what's happening in the UK, up and down the country, it's a hard time for people, for everyone. absolutely everyone, the cost of living crisis. Okay, we don't want to get to 60, 70, 80 with nothing, no assets and no income, no life-changing pension. Do you really want to rely upon the state pension? No way would I, nor for anyone that I love or care for, because unfortunately the state pension age is going up and up and up, and it's not keeping up with inflation. So you want to become your own pension pot. Okay, and then once you've helped yourself and put your own life mask on, then you want to help those around you, your loved ones, your family, your friends, and that's a beautiful thing about asset ownership. There's no limit. There's no limit, so you can keep scaling that to help as many people as you want to. Okay, so this is very important stuff, and you're on the right track if you're listening to this kind of property podcast. So just some other tips to leave you with, to try and end the podcast on maximum value for you. Okay, be humble when coming up. Be humble. When you start to own assets and get a passive income and give you that more lifestyle freedom, just stay humble. Okay, it's just a nice trait to have, and it will help you. It keeps us learning. When you stay humble and you don't put your ego in the way, we keep that growth mindset, which is very, very important. Delayed gratification is huge. It's really, really important. I certainly had to exercise delayed gratification early on. I moved into rent-to-rent. I wanted to buy, but I knew rent-to-rent would be a platform to allow me to buy. I had to be patient there. Patient. And then work towards this life-changing goal. And it won't happen overnight. Okay, it'll take a few years, but it's life-changing. Far better than working for 50, 60 years without growing our wealth. And then you can enjoy the fruits of your labour. Then you've got freedom, time, location, financial, everything to choose what you do, with whom, where you spend your time and how. Beautiful place to be. Okay, so there we have it. How passive is passive income? But it starts out not very passive, but then as you secure assets, mostly passive is the answer. But it's a beautiful place to be, and it doesn't feel like work, and it feels like an absolute privilege, and you've worked hard to get there, and if you've got a big mission, it's a beautiful place to be. Okay, so go and build that property portfolio, build the early retirement, build those assets. Delay your gratification, be humble as you go through the gears. Change your finances for life, and then change your loved ones around you as well. And then share your knowledge and help your sons, your daughters, your parents, your aunties, your uncles, your cousins, your friends, your loved ones. Okay, it's a really beautiful place to be when we can do that. So I hope the podcast has helped you as always. Okay, have a lovely, lovely week, and I'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Lifestyle Property Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you could leave us a review so we can reach and help more people. I'll also be giving one person who leaves a review a free family holiday to one of our luxury holiday lets. Thank you, and see you next time.